that it's hard for us to be certain about where we're going now. There are experts who say we've got plenty of resources, nothing to worry about. Other experts who say we're running out. How can we plan at all in the midst of this uncertainty?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is revise, in a sense, the meaning of planning. In the past, planning has meant, in effect, having control over the situation, getting from here to there in the future in a precise, controlled, highly structured way. Now, we can't do that, not only because, in part because our knowledge is insufficient for doing that, in part because events happen with the best laid plans and change that situation. So planning then, instead of being a highly scheduled, high effort to control getting from here to there, planning instead has to be seen as a pedagogy, if you will, for learning how to move in directions that we generally want to go, revising our movements and our directions as we go, changing as we go. It becomes more like whitewater rafting as a process, or being an explorer going out into new country where you don't know what you're going to get to, but you have to prepare yourself to be able to change as you move through that country.
In other words, if you've got a goal that you're moving towards through some kind of, you might call it a cybernetic feedback process, you may wind your way back and forth, up and down, but eventually you'll get to that goal.
Right. Precisely. Or you may decide as you go along that that goal isn't precisely the one you want to go for, and you change it. Now, what's central to that way of going about things is a major reperception about what constitutes competence. In the past, the director of activities, whether it was in a corporation or in a government agency, was seen as competent and saw themselves as competent if they were certain about how to do what we're talking about.
John Wayne strong leader.
And if you listen to political statements or read annual reports, that's still the general way of presenting the competent leader, executive. They know how to do it. Now, what we're talking about is knowing as well as possible what we're uncertain about in getting from here to there, and then using that feedback as we go, informed by those uncertainties, to adjust our process of going from here to there.
Well, one of the things that you write about when you discuss uncertainty is that in this uncertain environment of a manager, an organization, a governmental unit attempts to intervene, attempts to affect a particular variable that's of interest to that organization, they really don't know what the ultimate outcome will be. That is, what other variables are going to be affected by them.
That's part of the change, that reperception that becomes important. It's part of why leaders have to give up the idea of being in control. They've got to be resilient rather than in control, because we really can't know the consequences of our actions with the best of intentions or the worst of intentions, because the interaction of those consequences with a more and more complex world is simply unpredictable.
In other words, the variables, the complexity of the world, the social environment in which we live is so complex that it is absolutely unfathomable to human beings, and probably to any computer we will ever build. And so that therefore one never knows if one engages in a peace movement, if that's not going to further some other variable that will lead to war.
Right, but you do, that's right in abstract, but that doesn't mean you don't act. You still have to act. And given the choice of acting for peace or against peace, you act for peace. However, given what we've just been saying, it becomes imperative that those acting for peace in a peace movement have to be as sophisticated as they can be about the various ways things might go, and then make their choices among those various ways and stay alert to what else is happening as a way of adjusting the development of the process over time.
One of the concepts that you've written about is the notion of compassion and its value as a way of operating, as a way of managing, as a way of governance.
Well, it goes along with what we've been saying because, and to my mind, there are three aspects we have to recognize. Every person and every organization faces whether they know it or not, or every government or whatever entity. One is that you really don't know the outcome of your actions. Even if you think you've got them pinned down, you really can't know in any way for sure. Second, that we live in a storytelling life. We create our reality. Everybody does, and all cultures do, and there are alternative realities. So that's an arbitrary, problematic way of being in the world. And thirdly, everybody is struggling with the meaning of life, with living and with dying. And if you accept that that's the condition in this turbulent and uncertain world that everybody's in, whether they know it or not, including oneself, it means that you really have to support one another in including self, using all the knowledge one can bring to bear, recognizing all the ignorance one lives in the face of that knowledge, and the only choice under those circumstances is a compassionate state of being toward self and toward others, that we live in that problematicalness, and we have to respond to that. Now, there are an awful lot of people that aren't at all prepared to be that way, but I think it's a necessary way, and I think there are increasing numbers of people who are prepared to be that way.